Here we go. Ha ha! Whoop! Woof! Woof! Yeah! Woof!
Sit. Welcome, one and all, to show number 2 of the mighty Countdown to 5 podcast.
Hold on to your potatoes!
We're counting down to Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, taking a deep dive into every Indiana Jones movie along the way. Paul Preston of the Movie Guys here with you, alongside me.
Sean Blodgett of Creative Motion Entertainment, but you know that.
And we are in the Admirals Club in Burbank, California. And as of this taping, we are 70 days away from the release of the Dial of Destiny.
So close.
June 30th.
Oh my gosh.
70? Because if you said, like, look, we are taking steps now and we'll have climate change under control by 2050, that feels really far away. Dial of Destiny, 70 days? That's
70 days.
10 weeks.
And can I just tell you, I'm so excited about watching it with, like, different people. Like, different relatives that maybe when I was a kid, I watched some of these movies with, or, like, even my mom. I was like, man, I should go see this movie with my mom. Like, you know, I don't know when, you know, I'm just like, wow, this is very nostalgic. A lot of nostalgia coming up for me.
But today, speaking of nostalgia.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. That is today's movie.
So much to unpack. I mean, right out of the gate, this is a scary, scary movie. Scary.
Yeah, I've seen it within the last 3 or 4 months, but you just watched it for this?
I just watched it for this, and
boy.
I mean, we're going to get into it, but I could not believe how much I didn't remember.
That's shocking.
Yeah, how fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic, of course, but my goodness, it is intense.
Yeah.
It is intense, but also funny. There's some really funny moments. So anyway, go on.
Ford may be at his funniest in this movie. Seriously,
well, I don't know.
Hilarious.
I think Last Crusade really takes it.
Yeah.
For me, Last Crusade takes it.
I'll explain
well,
that.
all right. Okay, go ahead. We'll unpack that. Go for it.
But I mentioned Dial of Destiny.
Yes.
Sean, do we have updates on that movie?
We do have updates on Dial of Destiny. Okay, so they're saying Dial of Destiny.
Disney.
Lucasfilm. When I say there, I mean Disney, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they're saying Dial of Destiny is going to be the end of the franchise. Now, that wording seems very suspect to me.
Yeah.
It seems very odd that you would say the end of a franchise.
Because I said it could continue with Short Round or young Abner Ravenwood. And I think those are decent ways to go with it. But is that franchise, or are they pulling a fast one saying Indiana Jones is done, but we still got these other things in
Yeah, maybe.
the
And you've mentioned that before about doing a Short Round and a series. And I have to say, after watching Temple of Doom, I mean, I already thought it was a good idea. Now I think it's an even better idea. There's moments in Temple of Doom, especially when that one moment, I know I'm jumping ahead, but he says, Indy, I love you. And, you know, there's this relationship there, this very father-son kind of thing. You know, it makes you wonder, of course, he's not in the other movies. What happened to him? Did Indy, you know, take him to America and kind of start up a new life for him and help him find a family? And, I mean, I would love to see all of that unfold and then see what did he become? Did he somehow get tied up into all of this, wrapped up into, you know, this world of finding these strange, wonderful things, or did he go a whole different route? I don't know, but
if you do that, can you recast?
No,
you can't.
No.
So,
well.
I mean, you could, but should you?
You can't recast, but you can go a little bit older, like, you know, to show him, you know, maybe coming to America, you know, the sort of first moments with family, and then maybe, you know, teenage years a little bit, and then we go into him being an adult. I mean, I just think, and of course the adult should be him.
Right.
Yeah.
Should be.
Yeah. So, sorry. Okay. So on to other news. I'm just so excited about that. I think that should really happen. So, a Fiat from Dial of Destiny is already for sale. There's a website you can go to if you want to buy the Fiat. That's crazy. Yeah.
But the point is, again, I think another sign of confidence. Someone would want to buy this from a movie that's not even out yet. Normally, like, we're still selling, like, whips and hats from the original movies that are out there. So to buy something already from the new movie is like, well, this is going to be good.
I mean, I think
at least that's how I want to read it.
There's a part of me that says, I mean, look, I do think this movie's going to be good. I'm really into like watching all of it unfold. I mean, I think it's going to be great. I also think that because it has Disney money behind it, the marketing juggernaut that is Disney is already just like pummeling stuff. I mean, Harrison Ford is all over the place doing interviews, and I mean, it's just it's happening. And not that stuff doesn't normally happen for a film, but I feel like it's happening a little bit more, and it's because it's Disney.
Let's not look over the fact that Disney is lucking out that Harrison Ford has done the first 2 television shows,
right,
in which he is a major player. He did
right.
TV in his early career, ever, and so they're going to ask him about Indiana Jones. There's some free press when he does the junket for these other shows,
right,
and
absolutely.
now he hasn't even begun the Dial of Destiny junkets, which will be
right.
between May and June.
Right.
So,
right.
And with that, I've also read there will be a tribute to Harrison Ford at Cannes. We talked about how this film is going to debut at the Cannes Film Festival. They're also going to do a tribute. I would love to be there for that. I would love to see that video highlight reel. It's got to be 9 hours
You
long.
should do the video highlight reel because if you're not watching the Ford Fiesta to get ready for the tribute for Harrison Ford, you're missing out. So tune into the movie, guys. Watch the Ford Fiesta. It's fantastic. So there you go.
We love that man.
Yeah. I mean,
here he is.
He's... I mean, he is so great. And again, to prepare for this, I did watch a bunch of behind the scenes. And there's just stuff that Harrison Ford does as an actor and as a person that he just has no fear. And I think that's at the basis of really, really fine acting. It's
a good observation.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the willingness to like have no fear, jump in, and just do it. Anyway, we'll talk. Well, I'll tell us a quick story. The bridge that everything happens on, right? They had this bridge built for the film, right? Wasn't there? And Steven Spielberg apparently has a huge fear of like heights and being on this bridge. Like, he does not want to go anywhere. He even designed most of his shots so he didn't have to go like more than a few feet onto that bridge because he did not want to be on the bridge. They show the bridge to Harrison Ford. What's the first thing he does? He runs across it.
Yeah.
I mean, no fear. Also, the final update is one of my favorites. They dropped a new trailer. And I know you saw it, I saw it, and what I loved about it the most was it was the first time we got a glimpse of what the story's going to be. And the story sounds awesome. And all of the characters fit perfectly. It fits perfectly into the Indiana Jones world. And all of that was just really, really cool. Which, by the way, speaking of the Indiana Jones world, I just want to say an observation I had real quick, which is, as opposed to Star Wars, which, of course, I bring up Star Wars a lot because I'm such a big fan, but as opposed to Star Wars, which always had this sort of linear story going on, even though they jumped back and did prequels and then they did sequels and all that stuff, but there's this, like, linear story, right? That movie's supposed to connect to this, and this is supposed to connect to that. Indiana Jones... singular movies, but a series of films, right? I just love that because you could watch them all, or you could watch one, and you're gonna love it, and you're gonna know who the character is. You're gonna know, you're gonna have a connection with him, and you're gonna enjoy the ride no matter what. So I just right out of the gate, that to me is also great storytelling and filmmaking.
Yeah, it was funny when we did our show for Raiders. By the time it came out, the new trailer had come out, so we were all hyped for the Super Bowl spot.
Right,
and now
right.
This new spot is just everything. I mean, good Lord. The fact that they went a different route than Indiana Jones has ever marketed before by using the Rolling Stones to signify, okay, we're well into the 60s now.
Yeah.
Let's just set us in a place, and then halfway through bring in the Indiana Jones score that we know and love, set us up for Action City, and by the end he's like, I've been looking for this my whole life.
Yeah.
What is it? It's not the dial. I'm sure it's what the dial can bring him. Oh, good Lord. It's going to be incredible.
I will say this about trailers in general, and we've talked a little bit about trailers. There's a style of trailer editing, and there's a handful of houses that, trailer edit houses that do these trailers, and there's like sort of a way that they do them. And there was an editor who broke down what the style is, and it's always these moments, right? Like, maybe you have a ting at the beginning, and it goes into like a popular song, but a different version of the popular song, and we sort of have the set. I mean, and he does it all with basically text on the screen, like, here, now we're going to have this, and now we're going to have that, and now we're going to have this. And it kind of breaks you for watching trailers. You're like, I'm never going to watch trailers the same
old
way
movie
again.
showcast.
Yeah.
The old podcast I used to do, the movie showcast.
Yeah.
Our show was a preview show, so
Yeah.
it would come out the day before the Friday where all the movies open, and we would talk about what's coming up. So
Right.
all we were dealing with were the trailers. We goofed on it. I mean, good Lord. All the creepy kids singing, like all the movies like have creepy kids singing them.
Yes.
Zippity-doo-dah.
Yeah.
Whatever. And like, what does that have to do with anything? Nothing, but it's creepy kids singing, and you got the tone.
Yeah.
Right down to all the bwongs and stuff that the Batman movies and Transformers, the bwong. What is that bwong?
Yeah, I know.
It's suddenly the trends and trailers are crazy, and I'm sure they're in the Indiana Jones trailer, but it still looked pretty classic.
Yeah, it did. And I just watched it again last night in preparation for this, and I love it even more. I love
I've
when
watched it 3 or 4 times.
I love when you have a good trailer and a movie you're excited about, and you're like, I'm gonna watch this again because I just love it.
And somebody broke down all the things that are in Indy's house or condo or wherever he is in the opening shot when he's on the recliner.
Yeah,
and
when
the
he
stones
wakes up.
kick in
Yeah,
and he wakes
yeah,
up.
yeah.
There's like, here's a picture of. Here's the shot glass looks like a Marion shot glass. I'm like, okay, that's a stretch, but maybe.
So he's like, I'm pretty sure that was from that scene,
Yeah, they're loving it. We can pick all this stuff apart,
Indy's landing right now. He's coming to see us. I'm just kidding.
But listen, he's not, because he knows how to fly. Land? No! But that's... All right, so you're probably wondering what Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is about.
Well, it's a story that'll tear your heart out. And we have the most famous archaeologist in the world, Indiana Jones himself, to tell us all about it.
Now, that is 2 shows in a row. Sean, you're going above and beyond as a producer. I'm excited to hear from him one more time.
I mean, who better to tell us about his exploits than the man himself? Here we go.
Did you enjoy my adventures in 1936? Well, now it's 1935. And for some reason, my biceps and traps are bigger than they were when I rescued the Ark from Hitler. But here's what's important. I've had all kinds of adventures before the Ark. And now, I'm sitting across the table from a very handsome crime boss named Lao She. The only problem is, he'd like me dead. In fact, he makes me dead. But I scramble to get the antidote for the poison he gave me and escape a Shanghai nightclub with a splitting headache named Willie Scott, for which there is no antidote. Now, Willie and I end up in the back of a car driven by Oscar winner Short Round, who gets us to a plane which gets us in the air with no fuel. Willie, Short Round, and I jump out of the plane in an inflatable raft and land on the snow unharmed. Because I'm a professor, and if I know one thing, it's that the cushiest spot on the raft is the center where everyone sits. Anyway, this is not my first plane crash, and it won't be my last. There's gonna be at least 4 more if you count that one at the golf course. Eventually, we end up in India, and immediately I want to dial 911 because there's a creepy shriveled guy on the shore waiting to say hello. He says his village is missing a rock. Well, you say that aloud and you sound like a nut until I realize he's talking about a Shankara stone. You know what that is? Fortune and glory, kid. So I'm thinking I'm going to get me one of those $200,000 houses. Really splurge, maybe a $30,000 car. Oh, and that gold typewriter. And yeah, of course, if time remaining, the stone will bring life back to the village and return the villagers' children. So we're off to Pankot Palace, where we're treated to a meal sponsored by old country buffet. Bugs, eels, monkey brains. It was enough to make me forget the exposition going on at the same time. And I was the one saying it. But the point is, there's a cult called the Thuggy, but the Maharaja denies their existence. The kid seemed a little spooked, though. Like he put his trust in the Thuggy, and they took that trust and brainwashed him into supporting their child labor minds. Hearing that kind of stuff will just tear your heart out. Or Mola Ram will. Oh yeah, there's a guy named Mola Ram who's still running a Thuggy cult in the back of a pizza shop in Washington, D.C., and in the back of Pankot Palace. So, I see the 3 Shankara stones in a human sacrifice temple honoring the goddess Kali, and I grab them. Go back to the village and save the day. No, of course I don't, because I'm the greatest hero of all time, and I'm not leaving without all of us. Well, there's this little delay where I was force-fed ayahuasca and tripped balls, almost helping kill Willie in a careless display of pre-PG-13 violence. But it turns out you just had to burn me and the Maharaja to snap us out of it. Then it was Action City, as Pat Roach tried to kill me again. Last time I cut his head off with an airplane. This time I chop up his body in a rock crusher. I imagine in my later adventures I'll cut off his penis and beat him to death with it. I mean, how much worse can it get for this guy? Anyway, no sooner than you can say, no time for theme park rides, Dr. Jones. Shorty and I free the kids and are chased by thuggies in a minecart. What Mola Ram thought would be his last encounter with me was an attempt to wash me out of the mines. He literally tried to flood me out like I'm a gopher and Mola Ram is Carl Spackler. Well, we end up on a rope bridge with henchmen on either side. Crocodiles down below. I mean, this is clearly the finale. Eventually, I bring up Shiva, and that causes the stones to glow. This causes the demise of Mola Ram. I mean, between this and Lao She's diamond, I'm done with rocks. But nevertheless, I take the rock back to the village and reunite the missing kids with their families and laugh it up with Willie and Shorty until our next adventure. No doubt in 1934.
Well, there you go.
Oh, man.
You're all caught up.
That's just so much to take in, man.
Yeah, he can't quite really tell you. He left out a little gravitas, but other than that.
I mean, it's just so much. There's so much happening. Oh, my goodness. All right.
Thank you, Indy, for giving us your time and effort.
Thank you, Indy. Thank you.
Today and in the movies.
Yeah. I know you feel this way. I feel this way. One of my favorite things about movies is the opportunity to share in it with people and to talk about it. You know, when you see a movie that you leave and you're like, what do you want to get to eat? And you have nothing to say about the film. That's when you know it's not a great film, right? But when you leave and you're like, I just couldn't believe that it ended that way, or I can't believe this, or I mean, you know, and I may have talked about this on other episodes, but I had a friend of mine. I used to have this was when I was much younger, but I used to have a real issue with going to the movie theater and like being frustrated with people like, snacking on things and things opening and like somebody talking and da-da-da. And then I had a friend of mine who's a filmmaker who said, all that stuff is good. And the reason it's good is it really tells you as a filmmaker what's working, what is really engaging people. And it's really part of the film going experience. And after he told me that, I let down my guard and it just changed my movie going experience. And now I embrace all of that because I know that, you know, maybe somebody's opening up a candy wrapper, not just because they're hungry. Maybe there's a moment that's making them uncomfortable. You know, maybe it's making them feel something they're not used to feeling. I mean, everybody processes their emotions differently. And I think that's to be applauded. And that's honestly part of what the genre, what the art form is about, right? It's about challenging us as humans. It's about challenging our thoughts and our feelings about what life is. What do we believe and why do we believe it, right?
Right, so get off the phone. That's what that's
Good button.
All right, well, let's dig into our own memories, our own nostalgia.
Yeah.
When we were young pups and we went to see Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in the theater, I did. The year was 1984. The film came out May 23rd. Tagline to true you in, if adventure has a name, it must be Indiana Jones. That's a great tagline, right?
It's a great tagline, but it's an out-and-out lie because for this movie, this is not an adventure movie. This is a horror film.
It becomes scary in parts, but good Lord, the adventure? What, are you kidding me?
Okay, yes.
Beginning to end, it's wall to wall.
You're right. It's an adventure film, but my God, it's a horror film. And by the way, even Steven Spielberg and George Lucas acknowledge that, and George Lucas even says in an interview that the film kind of got a little darker than we planned, and I was going through a dark time myself. I was in the middle of a divorce.
Lucas and Spielberg attributed the dark tone to their breakups, where in the film they literally rip the heart out of a man.
Right?
So
yeah, no metaphor. It's just straight up. There, it's a 4. There it is.
Yeah, for this, Kasdan, I think, was kind of out, but he was involved anyway. But that's why they went with Willard Huyck and Gloria Katz to write the script.
Right. They were from American Graffiti, by the way.
Correct.
Yes, which is I thought that was interesting. I mean, I like. It's just like our group, right? Like we bring in people we know, we bring in people that we like working with. I mean, I think that's again part of the fun of filmmaking is getting to enjoy the process with other people that want to have fun doing it, because the days can be long, could be stressful, could be scary, it could be intimidating. Who knows, right? You could have real bugs on the set, which they did.
Yes. And the result was 28.1 million budget. That's 8 million more than Raiders. And the earnings, 333.1 million. So obviously well made back the budget and beyond. It was the highest opening weekend of 1984, and there was a lot of competition. 84, as we all know, one of the great years ever for like pop culture movies.
Oh my gosh.
Star Trek 3, Karate Kid, Gremlins, Ghostbusters, on and on and on.
Can I just say Star Trek 3, I think probably my favorite of that entire series.
Hey, I got the Christopher Lloyd Klingon. What could be better? So, yeah. I saw it in the Oneonta Theater, my hometown, Oneonta, New York. I saw it in the theater, an old vaudeville house turned movie theater where they walled off the balcony and put in a second cinema. Currently, it's a big nothing. That's how it is. And the other cinema that gentleman owned, Mr. DeGraw, he owned the Showcase Cinema on the other side of town. That's like a laundromat or something. It's like totally gone. So that's sad. I wish someone would revive that theater, but I imagine it would have to have a lot of modernity brought to it. Big cavernous space, though, to watch. Giant screen to watch this. I went 6 nights in a row to see Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Because that
You watched the... Wait, how old were you?
14.
Okay. 14-year-old, and you watched 6 nights in a row.
$3 a pop, Sean.
I mean... even at that age, that level of commitment to cinema,
took Top Gun.
Unparalleled, people.
It took Top Gun for it to go to $5, but $3 to go see this?
I know.
No big thing.
I know.
Yeah, I just was absolutely knocked out. I've been waiting.
I know.
You Star Wars fans who get 2 series a year, you don't know what the 3-year wait was like. It was brutal. And then there was going to be another 5-year wait until The Last Crusade.
Can I just say, this is definitely my age talking, but I miss that a little bit. I miss the anticipation and the waiting. I don't miss the length, because that used to be like really long. It felt like forever. But I do miss that when we were kids, that feeling of like, man, this is not going to come out. Well, I guess I'll have to go watch Raiders again just to get my fix in the meantime. I mean, I don't know. I kind of love that.
It took a while for that to happen.
Yeah.
For VHS to come along.
Yeah.
So. Much of the Chinese...
Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, so I'm just going to jump in my memory of...
yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, so my memory of watching Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, once again, is watching it at home, mostly. I just watched it, these types of movies, watched them over and over again, had some terrible bad copy that we got, and but riveted. And even as a young person... I think disturbed by by what this one was, and probably couldn't put my finger on why it was so different at the time, but definitely different. But loved it nonetheless. And Indiana Jones, take him how I can get him. He's awesome.
It wasn't until this last screening that I realized Kali is a female god. How much of a horror movie can this be, Sean? Come on, what's the matter with you? So other elements of the story that changed, they wanted to go before Raiders, so we didn't have Nazis again, which is funny because every other movie is just leaning on Nazis.
Right. Even Dial of Destiny, right? Yeah, they're like, we're going to right all of the wrongs of...
But all the Nazis in hiding, that's fun,
Yeah.
But, because, man, there's so much of World War II where Indiana Jones is probably kicking Nazi ass, but we never got to see it because there are too few Indiana Jones movies over time. But...
Yeah.
We'll get one more, and but this time is the only time they've really went entirely outside of that.
Right,
thuggy cults and all that. So that's totally different.
I like the development of that. I mean, I think the development of the story. Both of the writers had been to India. They were very interested in Indian culture, even though ultimately India was offended by the script,
Very much.
Mainly about the use of Maharaj in the script. They didn't like that was in the script. They wanted that to be taken out, and there were a couple other things they wanted changed or taken out, and eventually I think it was the art director who finally just said, I have had enough of this. I found all the same or similar locations in Sri Lanka, with the exception of the Pankot, is that how I say that?
Pankot Palace.
Pankot Palace. That was the only thing that they ended up having to do some visual effects to get to, but yeah. Pretty amazing.
Roshan Seth and Amish Puri, the two downplayed their involvement in the film, which is a shame because it's such a huge hit, but because of the whole Indian culture, it was all a very sensitive subject.
I mean, looking at it now, I mean, there's so many movies that we grew up with that we live in a sensitive time, a different time, and how would this movie be received today if it were released. I mean, certainly there is a specific take on all of that, and would more people be offended and up in arms, and yeah,
the thin-skinned people of today.
Oh
yes.
boy,
finding a reason to be upset.
Yeah.
All right, but I'm glad I rewatched this for reasons we were talking about before. Harrison Ford might be at his funniest here because, first of all, I look back on the film for years saying, this is just a goofy entry. It was so silly with Willie Scott's wacky antics, slapstick, and gross-out humor and all this stuff. I was like, they didn't do that in the first movie to that extent. They really went over the top, I think, with wackiness. And wacky wasn't my favorite part of Raiders. It was the adventure and the seriousness of the stakes, which get very serious here, but that it's coupled with all this nonsense. Now that I'm doing the Ford Fiesta, that last time I watched it, I'm just watching Harrison Ford. And watching Harrison Ford, he's none of those things. He is serious. He's on a mission. He's got stuff to do. But the lines he throws out to these maniacs around him absolutely kill. He is hilarious. And so if you want to watch this again, just watch Ford burn through this movie and be action city hero and smooth as can be, cool with the lines, great with flirting with Willie, and he just does everything great. But there is madness around him.
Well, I'll say this: he's a great actor.
Yeah,
and I remember being in acting school when I was a young lad, and one of my acting teachers, we had a section where we were just working on comedy, and I remember him talking about comedy being super real, like drama's real, but comedy's super real. And I think a lot of people don't think about comedy in that way all the time, but I think there's a lot of value in that, because when you really stop and think about the level of commitment that it takes, look at Leslie Nielsen in the Naked Gun movies. He is completely committed to the reality of those given circumstances as an actor and playing it completely real, even though it's nice beaver, right? Playing it completely real. And I think Ford does the same thing. He's just being a great actor. He's just committing to the objectives, he's committing to the given circumstances, and he's doing the job that's being asked of him. And by the way, a job that he got injured doing, and then not only got injured, they shut down the production. He flew to LA to get an experimental papaya enzyme back surgery, which I've never even heard of. And it was a success, and he came back and finished the movie.
He's the man. You don't have to convince me.
Papaya enzymes.
I've never heard of that. So, well, listen, it was Jake Steinfeld, who was the trainer to the stars, who got him in shape for this movie and for many of the films that he did.
And by the way, Jake Steinfeld, great guy. I had the great opportunity to work with him years ago on a really ultra low budget feature. It was a challenging situation, but he was just such a great guy and super, big, but jacked, big heart.
Big muscles, big smile.
Yeah, and he was also what was he in Ghostbusters 2 as well? He was like the cab driver or something in some, or there was something else. There was a couple other movies that Jake Steinfeld was in. Yeah. Anyway, super great guy, and obviously did a great job. I mean, Ford's got so many moments where he has to be shirtless, so they wanted him to be a little bit more buff. And we haven't even talked about it, that this movie essentially goes back in time, which I still don't know the motivation for or the reasoning for this being earlier. Do you know why is that? Do we have any real reasoning?
I mean, the British occupation of India, perhaps they wanted to be part of the plot. Was that still a thing into World War II? I can't remember how long that went on.
Oh, okay. So maybe we've got some sort of...
I don't want to seem stupid.
So, I think we're past that. No, no, but you know what?
Pre-show bit.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think conceptually that makes sense, right? Like, we've got some sort of historical context. We can't change that. And yet, I don't know, there's all kinds of real life things that aren't real. Like the bats, they were not giant vampire bats. They were fruit bats.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, but we can change those.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're lucky to get any bats. All right, so let's go through these characters. Speaking of Jake Steinfeld or whatever, because we now have Willie Scott, named after Spielberg's Cocker Spaniel. Why are we naming all these characters after the dogs?
Well, in the story that I just heard, basically it was just Spielberg saying, Indiana was the name of your dog, so I want the name of my dog in this movie, and that's where Willie came from. So,
and I heard Short Round was named after Willard Hike's dog. We'll have to see if that's not a joke. That's what I read.
Wow,
and
that's I didn't know that one. That's awesome.
If it's on the internet, you know it's true.
Okay.
So here's who else could have played Willie. Sharon Stone.
I mean, definitely different tone. I think the thing that Kate Capshaw really, really captured, again, was the level of commitment to the comedy. You know, and again, she just,
I would say a high level.
Yeah, a high level, but she just played the truth, right? The truth was, and interestingly enough, she claims that she didn't really know much, like how to really scream. She didn't really know how to scream. And
wow,
and it was
she does it well.
Yeah, and she says that Spielberg taught her how to scream. It's a family show, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, she says that. And the other thing that I think is interesting that she says, and we'll jump back into the cast, but is that she didn't really give the script a good read. Now I, as an actor, I always find that hilarious to hear when I hear big stars or I kind of read the script. What? I mean, when we were studying acting, it was like the script is like gold. Like you go through the script and you find like what other characters are saying about you. What is the writer saying? Like what's in there? Like tidbits of information. Like you make notes about all this stuff. And she's like, I mean, she says she didn't even know about the snake thing, and she didn't even know about the bug thing. And I'm like, did you read it at all? Because it's right there.
Wow, that's amazing considering she had no cachet at the time.
Right.
You hadn't heard Space Camp. Did she even made that yet? No, that came out I think the next year.
I loved that movie when I was a kid.
The only thing
does that say too much?
She must have seen the previous movie though, because she did dye her hair to separate herself from Marion.
Oh,
because she otherwise is a brunette.
Yeah, they made a big thing of the dress too. By the way, lots of.
Oh, I heard a story about that. There were lots of stories about that. It was a one-of-a-kind dress for the Anything Goes number with real beads from the 20s and 30s, and eventually was partially eaten by an elephant.
Yep.
This could happen to a dress, a person. This what happens.
And they had to file an
India.
insurance claim to, I think, fix the dress. And they're like, reason for the claim, eaten by elephant. I mean, it's probably not every day as an insurance adjuster you get that in your mailbox.
Pay it, because man, does she look gorgeous in the Pancot Palace sequences.
I mean,
whatever dress he put on her in that movie.
Oh my God.
Was just...
Also, and we'll jump back to the cast, but I just want to say this. Speaking of that dress, there's a moment at the very top of the film when she comes out and the dancers are around her, and the image, so cinematic and beautiful, and she's in that dress, and then the Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom title kind of comes in around her. Mm-hmm. Now, for that time, to do that kind of composite with text around a person was no small task.
No.
Right? You know? Now it's like, oh, I'll put it in just Adobe Photoshop, and then I'll put it in After Effects, and then I'll I'll click the button, and the AI is going to come in and do the rest. You know, and it's like, that's great. Back then, it's like somebody, you know, in a garage like this one, like trying to chop up film, and, you know, so that composite was it's just such a beautiful cinematic image, and it was a tough one to do, and I don't think anybody really talks about it, so I want to talk about it.
Is it kind of just erasing the text to reveal her underneath, as opposed to any kind of today they just remove background, make multiple composite layers of the shot.
Well, to put her on top. I mean,
Correct.
it's a technique that's used quite a bit now, especially in advertising, where, like, you know, the words are kind of behind somebody and they're, you know, coming, or they're just walking around, the words falling. I mean, it's used quite readily now, but back then, I mean, I don't even know if that had ever been. I wonder if that had ever even been done. I don't remember that ever being been done before now.
Well, hey, it won the Oscar for Best Visual Effects, so maybe that's
there you go. There you go. Okay, back to the cast. I totally derailed us. Go for it.
Well, Oscar winner Ke Huy Quan
my God,
beat out 6,000 other actors. You can only imagine what a call that was. Like, we're making another movie like Raiders of the Lost Ark. What everybody wants in. So, yeah, tough to get that part, but he did it, and
he wasn't even there to get it. That's the story. I mean, that's what's fascinating about that
I heard
story.
About that. Yeah,
I mean, he was there to help his brother, and the one I just heard in this documentary was that he was there helping his brother, and they kept looking at him like, who's that kid? Who's that? What is he doing? And I love the story of, like, I don't know if it was like the final audition or whatever, but, you know, he plays cards with Harrison Ford, and of course that basically ended up in the movie. And if you watch the audition, yeah, it's almost the same thing. And again, just a total level of commitment right, to what is happening. I mean, right out of the gate, right? They fall out of the sky, they land in the car, and he's like, holy smokes! You know, I mean, and it's kind of a silly line, right? Holy smokes, you know, but he plays it so honestly. You believe everything that comes out of that kid's mouth. And then later on, I've already mentioned it, but later on, I mean, this moment where he's like, Indy, I love you. And it's just it's heart-wrenching because he's so honest and amazing. And of course, he's brought that into his adulthood. And it really, I do want to say this, it breaks my heart that it took this long for him to get these accolades, to continue to get these accolades. And that, you know, the industry has taken so long to catch up in terms of what storytelling can be. I want to hear about other people's lives that don't look like me. I want to know what the world is around me. I'm interested in that. And we all should be, because we're all human and we're all here to share in this.
Yeah, I mean, he was always kind of behind the scenes doing martial arts, so it was good to see that what he was doing as a kid, he stuck with it. Clearly, you watch Everything Everywhere All at Once, he is whooping ass all over the place.
By the way, do you know where he learned his martial arts from?
I would love to know.
Watching Jackie Chan films.
Oh, there you go.
Now, he says this in this interview that I watched. He says, I learned about watching Jackie Chan films. Now, I'm putting my head back to the 80s. Do you remember Jackie Chan films in the 80s? No, because we didn't have Jackie Chan films in the 80s, right? Yeah. That was more of a 90s, early 2000s thing that really started happening. But that was here in America, right? Of course, in Hong Kong, right, he's all over the place. He's, you know, so he's watching these movies as a kid, and I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense. Interesting. So, yeah.
Yeah. Pat Roach returns as the massive thuggy guard. He ends up going into a rock grinder. But that's the same dude. Of course, he has the fight with Indiana Jones at the plane and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I think he showed up in another one.
Wait, is it the same guy?
It's the same guy.
Now, that I didn't know.
He just loves beating up that guy. and he loved getting beaten up.
Oh, my God, that's brilliant.
Yeah, and I always worried about, oh, no, he didn't get his, why don't we know more about it? That dude worked all the time. He was in Bond movies. He did all sorts of stuff.
Here's something interesting about that scene with the rock crusher and the fight scene. They shot that while Harrison Ford was back in L.A. getting his back surgery with his stunt double. And then when Ford came back, basically they just went back and got his close-ups. Now, that is a testament to Steven Spielberg as a director, because that's somebody who knows what they need to get, you know? So there you go.
He might just be the most brilliant director of all time.
Yeah.
Did you notice they used alligators sometimes doubling as crocodiles? I'm out.
That's it. Somebody call the ASPCA.
They said it was crocodiles. And of course, you have the usual suspects working on the tech aspects of the film: Dennis Muren, Joe Johnston, Ben Burt, legend. We also have to mention Douglas Slocum because, you know, he came back, you know, with the gaffer and the electric crew and the lighting crew and all that stuff. You know, these are the same guys. I mean, as soon as they show up on set, they're like, it's been a few years, but it feels like everybody knows each other. And I think that was part of why they were so excited to come back and make this film, because Raiders did come together so well. I don't want to say it came together easily, but it certainly came together smoothly, right? And I think they were excited to be back, you know, and doing a new film and doing such a different film, right? I mean, it was surprising on so many levels, and it, in terms of a quote sequel, it was very different, and we really were engaged in that story in a very different way, and I think that as much as the film scares me a little bit, it is a testament to filmmaking. Yeah, and 80% of that movie is sound stages at Elstree.
Right.
So Slocum's photography just doesn't make it look that way, you know?
I mean, he just knows... He knows where to put the camera, what to do with the camera, and it just makes it... He does that job that's like, you know, when people do a job and it's really complicated, but they make it look like they're just chewing gum?
Right.
That's that guy.
That's Paul Newman. Yeah. All right, so we talked about Sharon Stone could have been Willie Scott. She ended up being in one of those Alan Quartermain movies, so she kind of leaned into that genre eventually. But here are story bits that could have been that were cut. Indian and motorcycle chase on the Great Wall of China. Watch that. By the way, when I read all these, you'll go, well, here's our other 5 movies that we should have had.
But some of them are in, like the motorcycle chase. We have a motorcycle chase in Last Crusade.
Yeah, we have one in Crystal Skull, too, but on the Great Wall of China.
Wait, we have one in Crystal? Oh, yeah, I guess so, huh?
We do.
Yeah. That's how much I remember that movie.
A hidden valley inhabited by dinosaurs. The Monkey King. A dog.
Well, we see the monkeys in... not the monkeys, the singers, the actual monkeys.
Crystal Skull.
Well, not even actual monkeys, CG monkeys in Crystal Skull. So yeah, that did survive.
But they didn't have a king. This would have a monkey.
They were monkeys without a leader.
This would have Mickey Dolenz. A dogfight scene got cut. People who were
we see a dogfight scene. Last Crusade.
It's not the same kind of thing, like a dogfight. I think I mean a dogfight, like dogs fighting.
Really? I think they mean airplanes.
You do?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. They cut it. People who became superhuman zombies after drinking the blood. So that would have been a different reaction from the blood drinking.
Yeah.
A haunted castle in Scotland, and the title Temple of Death was also thrown around before it got.
We see the Scotland castle in Last Crusade in your favorite scene where Indiana Jones
gets to play a character, what we've been waiting for 3 movies.
I love your absolute disdain for that moment.
So I'll read this quote from Spielberg, and then you can tell us how you were scared by the movie. The danger in making a sequel is that you can never... This is Spielberg. The danger in making a sequel is that you can never satisfy everyone. If you give people the same movie with different scenes, they say, why weren't you more original? So this was very different from the first movie. What hurt you? How did you get hurt, Sean?
Here's what I'll say. I'm a very empathic, sensitive person, and when I watch movies, I feel them quite deeply, and it's one of the reasons why I actually can't watch. Like, I can't watch anything scary or like dark images like at night. I will have nightmares. If things just stay with me. It's like I
saw like Alien or
oh yeah, of course,
Poltergeist?
Of course,
oh, okay.
yeah. But I mean, I have to watch those kinds of movies at like 11 a.m. because I just, if I watch it at night, I'm going to be thinking about it, and it's almost like I watch a movie. It's like eating a meal. I watch it and then I digest it, and then it really affects me in a very emotional way. So much so that, I mean, here's a movie, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I grew up watching. I've certainly seen, before, and I watched it the other day to get ready for this. And by the end of it, I actually was tearing up when the kids came into the village. That's how much emotionally the movie affected me. Now, what I'll say is I don't love horror films or scary movies generally because I am sort of more sensitive to things. However, as a filmmaker, I love the genre. And I respect the genre. And the reason I do is because it does evoke real, honest emotions from an audience. The spooks and the jumps and all of that stuff. I mean, those things are totally honest and fantastic. And I love that. So for me, I applaud that and I think it's great. But
now let me just say, this movie rips through more plot, adventure, and action in 2 hours and change than these shows now, which need 6, 8, 10 hours to tell their story in a series. So more testament to Spielberg as a director.
Well, it's funny. We were going through the script, and I saw you write that note down about that, and I wanted to comment and say, totally agree. It's an amazing thing. I also think it's one of the things that these series suffer from is that they have to have filler episodes, which tend to be the episodes that all of the fans get angry at, right? Because the episodes that move story forward or moves character forward or whatever, right, that we want to see, they got to save it because they got to get at least 8 to 10 episodes out of it, right?
Yeah.
So,
like I just saw, there was a prequel to Grease, The Rise of the Pink Ladies.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I might watch that. It's a series. I went, why do we need that? Why do we wrap it up in 2 hours? You could tell the story of the Rise. They did Grease in 2 hours. Was that bad? Clearly not. They warrant more content from that world. So we're going to do it. But we don't need 6 to 8 hours.
I mean, have you heard about the sequel to Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
I did, but I can't say I don't.
The guys who stole the car?
But I can't say I hate Cobra Kai. So let's lean into
Cobra Kai is fine, but it ties right in directly to the storyline, to our main characters, all that stuff. This sequel to Ferris Bueller, supposed to be the guys that stole the car. What? That's not a sequel. That's just another story based in that same universe. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled program.
Yeah, you were scared.
All right, I was scared. And so what scared me? Well, first of all, the movie brings you in. And I mean, just like the whip, just like Indy with the whip, like it wraps around you and it just pulls you in, right? And it's relentless. I mean, that movie is relentless in tone, in pace, in energy, I mean, all of it. And you believe everything that's unfolding, and it's dark and it's scary, and I mean, and I think you hear this in interviews with Lucas and Spielberg where they say, you know, maybe we went a little too far with the scary, and then we tried to offset that with comedy. We tried to offset that with moments of levity. So every time there's a, you know, horrible, terrible moment, you know, maybe 2 or 3 minutes later, there's going to be a moment of levity, which, you know, usually came in the form of Willie screaming or whatever, right? So I think they did a good job of balancing that a little bit, but I mean, my goodness, the sequence with the ripping the heart out of the guy and then burning him, I was like, before I was like, okay, should I have my kids see this movie? And then I'm like sitting there going, I cannot show this to my son. This will be days of him not sleeping. Like, yeah. And it's not just that scene. I mean, it just keeps on going with the intensity, with Indy getting captured and then having to drink the blood. I mean, him hitting short round. I mean,
kids getting whipped.
Yeah, I mean, kids getting whipped. I mean,
hypnotized.
Yeah, I mean, all of this stuff. It's hard to watch, and again, because they play it honestly, they play it so clearly, honestly, and they commit to it. It's fantastic the way they deliver it. But man, it's a lot. But you know, it is an adventure. Maybe I misspoke earlier. It is adventurous, of course, but man, it feels like a horror film a lot of the time. Especially once we get to that part.
Don't say they didn't warn you. They open with something called Anything Goes. So, there you go. Speaking of which, there was the early peek at Spielberg wanting to do a musical. We mentioned how he wanted to do a Bond film, and I think with Indy at the opening of this movie in the tux, he's still putting a little Bond on Indiana Jones where he can. But yeah, the whole Anything Goes number, it destroys all place and time. We go in the dragon's mouth in the bar, and suddenly we're in like a huge sound stage, and there's like a Busby Berkeley kicking and dancing.
Yes, number. I love it so much.
He just went nuts, and you can see, okay, this guy wants to make a musical, and then he made good on that, of course, with West Side Story, and killed it.
And by the way, that Lucas was very encouraging about that. He knew that Spielberg loved musicals and wanted to do musicals, and he was very encouraging about him doing that number. So they didn't even know it was going to be Anything Goes in the beginning. That came about sort of later on. So yeah, that's and
let me tell you that we haven't even talked about this man yet, and I'll make it quick, and then we'll get on to what the legacy of the movie is. But John Williams, right, comes in. Doesn't have to do heavy lifting for a movie like this. Does anyway.
Yeah.
Comes up with new themes. All sorts of new themes,
yes,
right? They just could lean on the same crap before. We got the Raiders March, the Indy theme we all know and love.
Yeah.
But then from, all that stuff, brand new and fresh, and all the creepy music from the scene that scared you. And others. Yeah. I mean, but here's the deal. If you watch the beginning of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, you're thinking, oh, I'm a little kid. I'm going, boy, I loved Raiders. I hope this is fun. And then he does this like French horn blast, like right at the beginning. And then it kind of goes, into Anything Goes. Like before we even get to Anything Goes, Williams just hits you with that French horn. I'm here and I got you. And don't worry, you're good. Remember that, that it's just the greatest. When I heard that, I'm like, everything will be okay.
I love your take on that. That's beautiful. Yes, yeah. Yes, everything will be okay. As long as John Williams is taking us along for the journey, everything's going to be okay.
Gang's all here.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much that like, that opening sequence, when I watched it again this time, I was like, that opening sequence is just so fantastic. And it is, now that we've been talking so much about the history and the influence of this, and Spielberg wanting to do a Bond film, that opening sequence is right out of a Bond movie. I mean, the tux, the whole nine. I mean, it's so Bond-esque. And what's funny about it is even Ford kind of plays a little bit more suave and a little bit more sophisticated in that sequence at the very beginning, and I really love that. And I like this.
You're developing a sense of humor by going deaf. I mean, he's so great.
And I love the pacing with the, like, you know, they put the thing on the what is that, Lazy Susan or whatever those things are called? Yeah. You know, they put the thing on the Lazy Susan and they slide it over, and it's like, it's
and Williams is there the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he like underscores the movement of the thing. You're like, what is going on? This is cinema at its greatest in that moment. So that's why, you know, I struggle with this film, because it was scary, but there are so many great cinematic moments. So when we talk about where does this fit? I mean, yeah, it fits right in terms of cinema history and the importance of it and all of that stuff. So
does anything go? Sure, because we're having a little fun with anything goes. And then he takes a skewer and spears a guy right in the chest with it. So it's like, off we go. Okay.
Yeah. And the silliness of the diamond and the ice and the, like, you know, I mean, just it's you know where's the antidote? Where's the diamond? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's great.
Yeah. I had to go back 6 nights in a row, Sean. I saw Return of the Jedi 6 times in the theater. But Temple of Doom I had to see 6 nights in a row. I'm like, I had to get back into that, whatever that was.
I want to say that even this conversation makes me want to watch it again.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here talking about watching Ford run through this movie. It's the best. I want to watch it again. But mixed reviews back when it came out. It has an 83% on Rotten Tomatoes, but Ebert was like the bizarre, goofy, romantic adventure. Pauline Kael said it was sheerly pleasurable physical comedy. Pauline Kael hates everything. But
pleasurable physical comedy.
The most sheerly pleasurable physical comedy I've seen in years.
Wow.
It's true.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, take a guess who said this. The ads that say this film may be too intense for younger children are fraudulent. No parent should allow a young child to see this traumatizing movie. It would be a cinematic form of child abuse. Even Harrison Ford is required to slap Quan and abuse Capshaw. There are no heroes connected with this film, only 2 villains, and their names are Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. You know who said this?
Who?
People!
People Magazine.
People Magazine. People, calm down.
I mean, I can't believe People Magazine said that. I mean, I guess I can for the time. Maybe. I don't know.
And then they wrote an article about how celebrities are just like us. And they even go shopping at your local place. Look, we spotted Margot Kidder. And then they say this about, calm down.
I mean, yeah.
And we mentioned Gremlins. Also came out this year. Between that and Temple of Doom, we were on our way to the PG-13 rating. Mm-hmm. No surprise. Mm-hmm. Nominated for 2 Oscars.
Oh, which, by the way, not only were we on our way, Spielberg was paramount in making that happen. Because basically he called up the motion picture, what is it? The
MPAA?
Yeah. He called up the MPAA and was like, we need to have something in between an R rating and a PG rating. He's like, maybe it's PG-14, maybe it's PG-13, I don't know. So really, it's a Spielberg pull.
Yeah, Ebert and Siskel and Ebert were always lobbying for an A rating, adults only. See, it wouldn't have that stigma of NC-17, but only adults go. And boy, I would love any movie where it's only adults, no kids. The great thing about movies out here in LA is they do a lot of industry screenings. Normally no kids, usually no food. And that's the best. I know what you said earlier about all that, but really with none of that distraction, it's just glorious.
Well, I mean, I think there's an argument on both sides. There's, like I said, I enjoy now going in a group. I mean, when I saw Force Awakens, and it was in, a movie, just a regular movie theater in Orange County, people applauded when Harrison Ford came on the screen.
Of course.
People applauded when Carrie Fisher came on the screen. I mean, but this is just a random movie. This wasn't, in L.A. where I might normally go. This was just some movie theater. And so people were affected. It was great to see people being affected by this film in that way. So I think there's an argument both sides, right? I mean, I've gone to plenty of industry screenings and, I've gone to screenings at the Motion Picture Academy and all of that stuff. And that's a really great experience as well. I mean, these are people that care about films. And, so usually the screening rooms are like amazing and the sound is incredible and the picture is like pristine and perfect. And all of that stuff is also fantastic for just enjoying the film.
Oh, let me switch it to the New Beverly. Basically, they will throw you out if they see you on your phone.
Yeah.
And they will, and they should. And everyone around you will not tolerate it either.
Yeah.
And they'll let you know it. And so that's the way I enjoy it. Just let's stop the nonsense and take in the movie. It's meant to be overwhelming and own you.
And it's one of the
best ones do.
I mean, it's one of the great things about going to the movies. One of the reasons why I love it when I get to go, is the escapism in terms of I'm going to be here for 2.5, maybe 3 hours, depending on the film, maybe a little longer, depending on the movie. And I'm not going to look at my phone, and I'm not going to do other stuff while I'm doing it. I'm not going to pause it because somebody's at the door. I'm not going to, try to make dinner and watch parts of it. And, I'm here to watch this movie. I'm here to experience this story. I'm here to feel something. Maybe I'm here to learn something. Maybe in the end you like the movie, maybe you don't. It doesn't even matter. But you've gone through a journey, and there's no question that Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is a journey. It's a great it's a great journey.
It's supposed to work on you.
Yeah.
And distractions hurt that, unfortunately.
One of the things just jumping back real quick about actors, I wanted to say the gentleman who played the man in the village, he did not actually speak English. Have you heard this story?
No.
Yeah, he did not actually speak English, and all of his lines...
The You Will Go to Pankot Palace
Yes,
guy?
that guy. Yeah, all of his lines, Steven Spielberg basically stood by the camera and just basically said said them one by one, and the guy would just repeat it. And he was like, somehow my editor and whatever they put together, and it worked great, but again, movie magic.
Could be worse. I suppose you could be Ray Chow, I think his name is, who played Lao She. His voice was entirely dubbed by actor Ron Taylor. So
wow.
Nice try, Lao She.
Wow.
But anyway, so John Williams made a movie, so naturally he was nominated for an Oscar for it. So this happened again. 2 nominations for this film and 1 for visual effects. So those 2 nominations were... I suppose another argument for stunt Oscars maybe there, but anyway,
100% on the stunts. 100% on the stunts. I wish there was, I wish there were more. I mean, I know it would make the Academy Awards even longer than it is, but I wish there were more technical awards, because there are people on crews that don't get credit. Not the least of which is a first AD. And an assistant director department, where you've got, you look at the amount of people that are on that set. All those scenes with all those kids and all of that stuff that's happening, and the camera's moving and the mine carts are, doing their thing and they're coming by. I mean, you've got real elements that are dangerous, and you've got real, there's smoke, and there's all this stuff happening. And these folks were able to all work together and create these images and moments and I mean, it's just astounding, and I think there's a lot of people on a movie set that just don't get their due, and people don't even know, what's an assistant? Are they the assistant to the director? No, they actually have a job that really, really helps make the film, and it's people don't know, and that's okay. They don't know. They don't have to know all the ins and outs of the industry, but there's just so many folks. I'm a production designer. I mean,
considering 8 of Elstrie's 9 studios were taken up with this movie. Maybe that should have been considered for an Oscar nomination as well. And some of the mines set, the Kali human sacrifice set, the palace itself. So many great sets.
Well, and the minecart, that was all miniatures and all of that stuff.
It won the Oscar. Yeah.
With live action stuff. I mean, and I still think it looks pretty good. When I was watching, I was like, yeah, this actually looks still pretty good. I like it, I mean, of course, nowadays we would do it very differently, but yeah, incredible.
And then Christmas 1986, the film sets another record: 1.4 million VHS cassettes sold at $29.95. So,
yeah, I'm sure I bought it.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I did.
Yeah. I mean, had to have it.
I had them all. I have the Blu-rays.
This is where I dislike being able to just stream stuff or whatever. First of all, the quality isn't always what people think it is.
It's very rarely is good.
No.
Blu-rays still are the best in 4K, even more so at managing the shadows and the colors and all that, keeping it. Otherwise, the pixelation just drives me nuts on a streaming service.
Well, and it's funny because I think people sometimes think, oh, well, it's 4K, it looks great. And go walk up to your television get closer, see what you see, because you're going to see pixels, And, yeah, maybe from a distance, those pixels come together and it forms this beautiful image. And maybe you've got, HDR, and like now we've got this like high dynamic range with all of these colors and all of this stuff. Yeah, okay, whatever. That doesn't always make or break anything in terms of storytelling. I mean, I'm a big fan that everything is story. From your color palette to the way you frame an image to how you decide to move the camera or not move the camera. To the performance, to the music. I mean, all of it is story. All of it comes together to tell maybe the totality of the story, or it enhances the story in some way. But this movie in particular, I think, captures all of that in such a great way. And it doesn't need this, like, high dynamic range color thing or what, it doesn't need all of that. It has it all there. And I don't know where I'm going with that point, but I guess my point is technology's great, but it's not an answer to great storytelling. Great storytelling is just great storytelling.
Sean, well said. And I think you've wrapped it up. I think you put a bow on this show, everything we need to know about Temple of Doom. So let's wrap it up. Once again, I'm Paul Preston.
I'm Sean Blodgett.
And hit us with the plugs, Sean.
You can find me on Instagram at Creative Motion Entertainment. You can also go to my website, creativemotionentertainment.com. And please be sure to chime in your thoughts at themovieguys.net, at countdown5show@gmail.com, or on social media, which includes facebook.com/countdown5, at Countdown to 5 on Instagram, and at Countdown, 5 show on Twitter. And of course, you can get the show at YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and of course, themovieguys.net. Plus all the old episodes of Countdown to 9. If you haven't seen it, check it out. You're going to love it.
It's this, but Star Wars.
Basically, that's right. Oh, and of course, all of this is brought to you by Creative Motion Entertainment and Digital Mind Productions.
Yes, if you need random production stuff with video, we're your guys. Let us know.
Exactly.
Sean, I'm shocked this came in at a running time that looks to be shorter than the last episode. We're already streamlining this thing. I'm shocked. You?
Nothing shocks me. I'm a scientist.